We were just talking about how this is a little bit like a birthday party and you wonder which of your friends are going to come. Welcome, Bill. Welcome.
Hey, Ben.
Hello. We'll give a few more minutes for folks to come. Hi, Christina. I don't know if you can see it in the chat box, but Ken Libby has said that the camera's not working there, so he's going to chat. So keep an eye on the chat box there.
Right.
I like this crew from High Hope. A couple people.
Oh yeah, that communal.
Spencer.
And that's Sandy.
I'm Sandy.
Hello.
Hi. We're excited to meet you all.
And some of us might drop out midway. We just wanted to say hi and get familiar with you guys.
Great. Welcome, Anne and Patricia. Oh, and I see Kitty's there too. Welcome, Kitty.
Hey, Kitty.
Hi, Bill.
For those who've just joined, we're just giving another minute or so before we begin.
Okay, did you need me? Oh.
Welcome, Director IT. I like that. I should just call myself coordinator too. Should probably sit up straight if I'm going to do that. Oh no, Joanne. I'm sorry to hear that. I see your message in the chat box there.
It's all okay. As one who loves to draw attention to herself, this has been a great time to do that.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Welcome, Yolanda. Looks like Heather's coming in. Hello, Heather. And there's Carrie. Hi, Carrie.
And how you feeling?
I think we should go ahead and get started. I'm sure more people will pop in. I'll try to keep an eye on the waiting room. Justine will kind of get us going this morning or this afternoon for whoever we are and wherever we are. I'll just give you a little outline that if you haven't been on one of these before, this happens twice a month. So the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. And the Retreat Center Collaboration is a collection of retreat centers and allied organizations all across the United States and Canada. And I'm excited because I'll be sort of presenting for today. So it'll be me with people I know. So Justine is going to give us an intro here though.
Thanks, Ben. I love the like whoever we are, wherever we are, because I feel like that's perfect for the world currently. And we're figuring it out together. Hi, everyone. My name is Justine Johnson. I'm the Associate Director at Kirkridge Retreat and Study Center for those who I haven't met yet. And I'm also offering support to the Retreat Center collaboration during this time. Ben was doing amazing work and realized doing support and resource providing needed a bit more work. And that kind of is a nice thread into this Mighty Networks topic today as well. I wanted to open up the conversation, again, another thread from 2 weeks ago, and it's okay if you weren't on that call, but 2 weeks ago, we really started our journey into justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion work. I'm grateful to Janine Wu, who really led us through that gracefully. Her facilitation of holding all of us in that and building something collaboratively to look at, hold, and move forward was beautiful. And we're in conversations with her now of how we can weave that more intentionally into the Retreat Center collaboration. So that's a little bit of context, but my opening for today is, how is that going? It's been 2 weeks. We talked about the relevance of Jedi work. Again, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. How necessary and needed it is in retreat centers and allied organizations. And then we also talked about opportunities within our own retreat centers and our local neighboring organizations. And then what are some potential action items? So in the chat, I'm going to put a link to our blog that Ben thankfully captured everything so well. So if you missed it, you'll feel like you were kind of in this conversation with us, an ongoing conversation. But my opening today is, how has that sat with you? How has that conversation sat with you? Has there been an opportunity to apply what we discussed? And how are those action items coming through? And if you weren't on that call, that's quite all right. I would still love to hear from you about your organization and what you are doing, or if you've just started the journey, what you're thinking about doing around justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So really, it's just an open conversation for about 8 minutes, and I would love to hear from all of you. Thanks, Ben, for popping the link in the chat.
We have there's another blog post of just the video from that call, but this blog post was part of the drawing that we sort of all made together. And so you can go back and see all the comments that we populated in the chat and then put into the drawing as we were thinking about how does this apply to my center and to the work we're already doing. It was very custom to each person's process and each organization's process. So there's a lot going on. There's no right answers. Just kind of curious how things are settling.
Are you asking for us to do it out loud, Justine? Yeah, okay.
I'm so grateful for you. I was like, did I ask too big of a question? I would love if you could speak into this, unmute yourself and speak into it, or if you'd feel more comfortable, you can definitely use the chat.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Hope everybody's good and hopeful and balanced. And if that's too much to ask, I'm glad you're here. I think, one of the things that I wasn't in the session, we had 2 of our staff in the session, and they both came back with strong feedback of how positive that was. And so Janine and I actually, I invited Janine into a further conversation with us at Dominican Center. And so the way we're taking it is, doing more one-on-one with her in particular to say, how can we now move it even deeper in our end? So, that's one of the things that we did from after that conversation.
Thanks, Margarita. I appreciate that. Anyone else? It can be action item or just kind of how that felt, how it landed on your person. Maureen, you had your hand up.
I invited Arlene, but I'm not the official inviter, so I learned I don't have much power. But I hope that we'll be able to have her do the structural racism, following up on, we've just done conversations on racism as a Zoom retreat, and now I'm just going to finish up next week the White Fragility Book Club. Both of those have had a small attendance, but a very committed attendance. So I'm hoping it'll become one of those circles of influence that can happen, and that others will find that is important.
Thanks, Maureen. And I see Arlene's on the call too. So wonderful, Arlene. Thank you.
Hi, this is Carrie, and I'll just say, so my retreat center is basically just myself and my husband, and we were supposed to be getting going at the beginning of this year, and of course things didn't go as we thought it would go this year, like with everyone else. But the one thing after the conversation a couple of weeks ago, the one thing that I felt like I was able to do was to commit to being a part of a book club. So a friend and a sister at the Adrian Life Center, the Weber Center, I guess, started up a book club called, and we're going through the book called Mindful of Race by Ruth King. And so it's been very interesting, first of all, to read the book, but also to be able to have these conversations, like just really honest, open conversations about myself, about our community, about our culture, with a group, another group of people who are also interested in exploring this a little bit more deeply. So I feel like that's something I can do personally that is going to help me as I move forward. And I'm also just kind of percolating, like things are percolating around how, so I do parent work. I really enjoy working with parents. So a couple things that's come into my awareness is just how will I be able to offer something that will help parents feel more comfortable about having these conversations with their children. So that's it for now.
Yeah, Carrie, that sounds like a lot for now. Different bites you can chew and process on. Thank you for sharing them. Multiple. I also just want to note two that are in the chat room. So Arlene wrote, included Jedi as part of our new hire orientation. I would love to see how that goes. And then Lawrence shared, he has joined the Commission for Inclusivity, Equity, and Diversity for his town. That's wonderful, as the clergy representative. So it seems that there are tendrils kind of going out. Any last one before I kind of move forward? Heather, go ahead.
Yeah, I wasn't able to join the last session. I've really appreciated conversations with Janine over the last year and a half, and so just that this conversation is happening is wonderful. And Carrie, what you were speaking about, you know, how to talk about, you know, for parents, supporting parents with children, you know, for our work, we've really been looking at our program leaders. You know, what is the gap in the awareness for those who are holding space, holding experiences here, and that's of all the pain points, that is actually the biggest pain point, is when we're inviting people into a space, they expect it to be welcoming, they expect it to be, you know, and then when there's a gap in awareness, particularly in white program leaders. And so it's been really incredible to see each of our program leaders collectively and also individually going into their own work. So we have a group that works specifically with children's book authors and illustrators. And they've been diving into their work, and so she shared with me a whole list of the resources that they're working with youth. And so that web of relationships, each of the program leaders doing their own work, and as they're feeding, almost, you know, similar to what we're doing here as retreat centers. So I guess one of the biggest learnings is, you know, is that this container we're inviting participants into, if that container doesn't have the level of awareness, that is where the key harm happens. And that's our really big, deep work and focus.
Heather, that's wonderful. Thank you. Anne?
This isn't directly related to the call a couple of weeks ago, but when Susan Clausen, who's on this call, went to the Fetzer Institute a couple of years ago for that gathering of retreat center directors, she came back wanting to do like a race audit of our retreat centers. And so we have been doing that, and it has moved from just the 2 retreat centers doing it to the whole campus doing it. And we've engaged with a group called Undue Bias out of St. Louis that has been helping us with that. They're really good. And I would say that we're getting into the weeds, the tangled weeds of the intersection of race with caste and culture and power. And I'm just so grateful that we're on this journey, however complex it is, because we're beginning to see and then untangle some things that have been operative that we weren't even aware of.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think all of these points, it's a continuous kind of connecting the dots. And what I'm hearing too, and where we'll carry the conversation, is looking at it in different lenses of the individual work, the institutional, what our retreat center needs to do, and then larger systemic, right? Systemic problems in regards to oppression. And so how do we also become change agents in that? I also think this is maybe a segue, Ben, but thinking about how Mighty Networks, how this platform can be a hub for those conversations to take place. It feels weird to kind of like cut this conversation off and move to Mighty Networks. If you have more comments in the chat, please use it. I think this, again, will be an ongoing conversation. And at the end of this, we'll kind of loop back to see where else the Retreat Center collaboration can help in the work of JEDI. What else can we be doing? And so just keep populating the chat. We save the chat and we share it in our notes. And there's a ton of good resources that have already been shared, and we'll send that out. So at this, I'll send it back to you, Ben.
Yeah, yes. So if I was starting a chat thread right now in Mighty Networks, I would want to ask who else is doing racial bias audits at their center. That's so fascinating to me. I think there's so much good work that could be done there that applies to work that the RCC would like to do. So yeah, there's a lot of commentary I'd like to give. And that's what's so great about Mighty Networks, is it's a platform for us to have those conversations over time. And I don't have to hold them. None of us has to hold it specifically. The platform is there for us to sort of bounce back and forth in and out of. I'm going to share my screen so that we can go there together and look at it for a few minutes before we come back and debrief and think about the utility of it. And then once we have that conversation for a bit, we're going to look at this new video that we've produced and talk about how we can use that together as well. So I have two things here that I'm kind of putting out there for you, and I'm going to be reviewing them for you, and then let's have a conversation about how we can use them. But before we jump into Mighty Networks, can I just see a show of hands? How many folks have popped in there and sort of registered as a member yet? Okay, good. Vast majority. So this won't be totally brand new to you. And a couple of people who haven't seen it, and that's totally fine. To become a member, you just request to be added, and Justine or I can accept your request and get you in there within the afternoon. So it's not hard to get you in if you haven't been in yet. But I'd like to share my screen and go there with you and take a little tour. So can you see this here?
Yes.
Move a couple windows out of my way. Okay, so this is sort of the main landing spot within our Mighty Network. Mighty Networks is a platform that communities, intentional virtual communities around the globe have used. There are many other platforms that are similar, and we chose this one because we had gotten a lot of good reviews from similar organizations who are using it for similar purposes. What I like about it is that it's very simple, and it's very similar to Facebook or another social media platform, but there's no ads. So it's just you and the other people in your group, and that's it. You just communicate when you want to communicate about something. You put up a link if there's something you've read that you find interesting, and you can thread those conversations together, or you can just come back with a new conversation. There's no other ad there or diversion. So I want to start by just kind of walking you through the left side here. At the top, there's a link to our actual website. So if you click here, it will open a new tab and it'll take you to nothing. retreatcentercollaboration.org there at the top. On the right is just the home. So wherever you are within Mighty Networks, this will take you back to the same page that we're on right now. Below that, it will give you some things organized by theme. So you can see who's logged in already. We can see that Margarita is logged in. We can see my icebreaker question that many of you have answered, and then some news, some recent posts that people have put in. If we scroll down a little bit, we can see the topics, which we can also access over here on the left. These topics are ones that I put in that I thought would be kind of the basics. but there are a lot of opportunities for more topics here. And if you have an idea for a topic, I don't want you to be limited to my ideas for topics. But I'll give you an example. This topic, classifieds and job postings, I'm thinking of as a Craigslist or a Facebook Marketplace or anywhere where you put up flyers in the front of your coffee shop. If you've got something you want other retreat centers to know about that you think is kind of interesting, and you might want to get their feedback on it, or you might want to have them pop in for a bit, this is a great spot to post it. Let's say you're trying to hire someone and you know that this is a network of retreat centers. You can post it here. I'm leaving this pretty open for folks to do as they will. I don't want to promote anybody's event over another person's events, but if we all want to promote our events together here, that's fine. I'm going to go back to discovery. Well, we can stay here in topics for a second. There's some stuff here that's very specific, but I think we could have quite a conversation about it. So for example, long-term residencies are a nice solution for the COVID environment. Who's doing that? How's it been going for them? I'm not sure. But if we click into this, we can see that this topic's just getting started. And if you folks want to populate with your experience or with something that you found that someone else is doing, this is a great place to start a conversation if there isn't one going already. I also have in here some research and theory. Now, I'm kind of a nerd about this stuff, and I don't work at a retreat center, so I can think really big picture, and I can get really excited about ideas like collective impact from the National Council of Nonprofits. That doesn't mean that anyone else wants to read this, but if you do, this is where you can find it, because I'll be posting it in here when I find cool articles like that. Community calls here. I think in the future, I'd like to be posting all my blog posts about our community calls, all those videos. I'd like to post those right inside this topic so that we can continue the conversation that we're having on the call right here in a thread about that video or about that presenter or about that concept that someone brought up on the call. So I want you to feel very comfortable to just pop in here and say, oh, you know, I noticed this that seemed related to what we talked about last week. This is a space for all of us. If we scroll down a little bit lower, you can see a whole group of members. I've had this space open for about 3 months, and many people from our steering committee joined in when we had a virtual retreat in here for the RCC steering committee. So as we scroll down, you'll see some cohorts, and then you'll see courses. Now, we haven't actually offered any courses in here. The only course you'll see listed was this virtual retreat that the steering committee did. And I wanted to show you that because I think that's helpful to see what's possible for us as we go forward. So hopefully I'm not taking too much time, but I'll pop in here. This is listed as private because it's just for the steering committee. No one else attended. But you can see that we have a retreat overview. That was a page that just told folks what we're going to be doing during the retreat. Pretty short. I'm going to close out of that. And I wanted to show you on day 3, August 6th, we gave a little outline of what we wanted to do. Here's a pic of us on Zoom together. Some discussion notes we attached, so you can pop in and look at all those documents. We had a Jamboard going, so if folks wanted to come back and access what we talked about, they could get in there. And there's a bunch of stuff for me as a host. These kind of little corners of the platform are really helpful for going deep with each other. And I see a lot of opportunity here. So for example, Jedi could be a course, or Jedi could be a cohort. It wouldn't necessarily have a specific syllabus, but it could be a cohort, a larger, we're gonna keep going back. It could be a cohort, a group of people that whatever the work comes up, they continue to meet together and do that work. So Roots to Reach has never done any work inside Mighty Networks, but if they wanted to, that group of 30 people could come in here to the platform and communicate about issues that are important just to them in a separate conversation from the rest of the platform. I think in here we could have a cohort of, Justine started this group, a collaboration creators cohort. Centers that are working with each other perhaps could join in here. There are many different ways that we could do this. So I wanted to share those with you because these are not necessarily resources that we're using right now, but we could use them as soon as folks feel like they're ready or they want them. The other thing I wanted to show you, I'll go back to home. This is always available at the top right. And there are some really simple things to be here, to meet up here. When you see this icon, this is the group chat for the whole Retreat Center collaboration. So in the chat, anybody can talk with anybody in one long thread. I don't know for sure where this can go, but this is basically the same as a community call. We can continue to talk with each other. However, if we want to just talk to one person, I wanted to show you my conversation with Sophie. Sophie said hi to me 2 months ago on July 28th. I had no idea that she had said hi to me. 2 days later, I realized, oh, I need to allow some notifications because I have no idea who's talking to me on here. And I think that's important for us to think about. If we download the app to our phones or to our iPads or whatever else, and we want to communicate a little more regularly, we're going to need to think about notifications. So I want to show you where you can do that because I realized as host that was going to be very important for me. So it's not under your profile, but I would like you to look at your profile too. I didn't put very much information in here, but you can see that I've been a part of a course, I've been a part of a couple cohorts, and I'm interested in several topics. I've sort of signed up for these topics. So when anybody posts in these topics, I'll get a little notification. These are the topics that I'm curious about, that I want to know more about, and I'm hoping to learn more. So I've made myself available to those. But under your settings, you can choose notifications. So I'd encourage folks to look in there and poke around a little bit. You might not want as many notifications as I do, but I think it is interesting. Let's say down here, maybe there are chat messages you want to be a part of, or some course material that you're especially interested in. This is an easy way to keep track of that. And it meets some needs that folks have articulated in the past about a listserv or another kind of Google group type setting where some information is getting posted to the internet, but I don't know when or where it's getting posted. This way, if I've signed up for these notifications, it comes right to my inbox and I can jump right into the platform and respond when I'm ready at my leisure. I wanted to mention also, and I hope that Lawrence hasn't gotten off the call yet, but Lawrence had mentioned that he was interested in regional cohorts. And that is something that I think is a special opportunity here. Natalie from, I think, Sacramento area in California had also listed this as an interest of hers. How do I connect with centers near me so that we can keep a conversation going about what's pressing for us in our area? I think a cohort could be a great way to do that. It could be very informal. And it could just be folks near you in your region. Now, of course, there could be other interest-based cohorts or organization size-based cohorts. But Lawrence, if you're on the call, did you want to say something about that while we're here?
I think he's already popped off.
Has he already popped off? Okay. Lawrence is on the East Coast, Massachusetts. I'm sure other people are interested in what's possible there. I can help create those cohorts with you, so reach out to me and I can help make that possible. I'm going to stop my share, pop back into our larger group. What's your initial insight after kind of taking that whiplash tour through the platform?
Bravo, Ben.
Okay, yeah, it was intimidating to me for the first 2 months. Now I've been in there for 3 months, so I can give you a tour. Just because I feel like I'm creating Facebook from scratch, but I'm not. I'm using a platform very similar to Facebook, so it's not really that scary. And in some ways, it's a lot simpler.
Just to offer a user vote of confidence, I worked with Ben on the virtual retreat that we did for the steering committee last summer, not having interacted with the platform at all, and not particularly savvy when it comes to these kinds of platforms. And it was extraordinarily user-friendly.
Great. And no ads.
No ads, yeah.
I think then, you know, way back we were talking about a living library. And it seems to me that this platform definitely lends itself to what we had been talking about.
That's been my hope. So it's really reassuring to hear you say that. You were a part of so many of those conversations, and I kept looking for something that would fit that bill. We had a lot of needs that we wanted met, and I felt like this was the closest I could find. It's still not perfect. I think there are still some things that we're going to have to poke around for to find. For example, in terms of resources, if you don't know that it's under a certain topic, it may be hard to find that resource that you're looking for. But this is the best that I've found to meet, yes, that need of a living library.
Ben, this is Tom Howell. I also have used this for about a year through another network called the Non-Anxious Leader Network.
Yes.
And it's very helpful. I like the security part of it because you have to be approved by the administrator to join, and you have to have a reason to be on it. So I think that that's a really key advantage. And it continues to improve. I really like the ideas of potentially doing some training on it that's very specific for us as leaders and managers of retreat centers that have a specific skill set that's not necessarily, there are requirements that we have to meet that aren't necessarily found in industry. So I think it could further development the RCC from a training, and even if we wanted to create some type of certification aspect in the future. But I just wanted to mention that because I do have to jet to another meeting, unfortunately, because we are a camp and retreat center, and I've got a ACA meeting I've got to get on. But I just wanted to say hi to everyone, and I'm all over it. Mighty Networks are great.
Thank you, Tom.
Networks.
We're on. Ben, as a newcomer to this group, bravo, and very helpful actually to come in and just be welcomed into this stream of information and resources and possibilities. So even as a first timer.
Okay, good. I'm so glad to hear that. Yes. I want this to be a platform that isn't, that has that quality that Tom expressed, that it is your peers, that it is a place where we're invested in collaboration and community. But I also want it to be a place that's not intimidating to become a part of. There needs to be sort of that warm welcome side of it, that it's not too high of a hurdle to get involved. I want to create some depth there, that if folks want to get accountable with each other and work on a difficult collaborative project, there's room to do that. But also, if you just want to have a conversation with somebody at another center, you can also just have a chat. Hopefully this meets both of those needs.
Ben, you went into something and you said that was private, your virtual retreat. Does that mean that you can go in, but we couldn't when it says private on it? Is that
correct? Some of those cohorts and courses you won't be able to see when you're logged in. I can see them because I'm a host. So some of the visibility is different depending on host, moderator, or member. I think those are the 3 tiers. So if you're a moderator of a course, you can create a course and invite participants to join. And because I'm a host, I'm sort of in and out of the whole thing, and we'll see if that continues to be my role. Right now, we're kind of feeling it out and seeing what's needed. And I think that's some of our work as we go into it. As folks get in and have conversations, I think we'll be able to identify more what we want to do with it.
And Ben?
Yes. Can you say it again, Jennifer?
Yeah. Can we, for the most part, when the conversations and chats are public, just hop into them? Do we need permission? How do we introduce ourselves? Do we just do that on our own?
I would like to encourage folks to do that on your own, and yes, to hop in and out of all conversations that you have access to. So
that's great.
Yes, and if there's a cohort that you can see and you would like to be a member of, because it applies to your work, request to be a member of whatever that is. You know, if there's a course going on, I think the more communication, the better in this setting. Yeah.
Thanks. Very impressive, Ben.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Great.
Oh, good. Okay, so Justine, do you know of other points that I need to hit there before we transition to talking about the video?
I think just to provide space if there are more questions, as Ben was talking and giving the tour, I was admitting people who requested that. So Ben and I are kind of holding the space. Ben Way is holding the space. And I would love to see people's profiles filled out. I think that will help build community and trust in that, knowing who's in that space. And Ben, I just wanted to say, I clicked on the RCC website and it did pop up for me. The website's still there. And one of the beautiful things about Mighty Networks, I'm just reiterating a point, is that many of our community calls is where we get this community forming relationship, right? Community building. And we've always encouraged at the end, okay, have these conversations offline. And we don't know if that's happening or not. We hope it is. But this will really break down barriers to make sure those conversations are a bit easier to have offline. Okay, I guess they're still technically online on Mighty Networks, but away from the community calls. And just pose questions. I think Ben has done a really beautiful job. He's drafted a welcome letter that touches on kind of how we hold this space, what the potential is, and Ben and I are really interested in learning, how do you want to utilize this platform? We are not gatekeepers in any way, but what do you want to see on there and how can we best make that happen? So I just kind of want to leave that there too. What are the opportunities you would love? That can be in an email to us, or it can be through Mighty Networks message or a question posted. Bet, did you want to try and do the prompt on Mighty Networks?
I think that would be fun. And yes, I would like to, yes, I would like to do that.
Great.
So I'm going to share my screen again. So I'm going to go back home here. And I am going to share a question with you all. Now, this is something I think many of us can do. I don't know if this is just for hosts, but here's the question I'd like to ask. What unexpected benefits have come from moving your work into virtual space? That could be with your staff or your programs. It's a question. I might add a topic of, I'm going to say the future of retreat centers, just so that it falls under that topic after I post it. Do I want to notify all members? Yeah, I'm going to let them know that I've posted this question. So just like our icebreaker question, you can tap on this button and put a comment of what unexpected benefits you've run into. And you can see a whole thread of other folks' thoughts about it. A great way to just kind of pick the brain of the collective, which is something that we enjoy doing as a collaborative, but don't often have this platform in front of us to do it. And I think it's something that we can all do together. So it's a cool opportunity for us. I'm going to close this. You're going to start seeing this at the top of your thread, and then you can answer. If somebody else is logged in and wants to try answering, we can see if it populates.
I just answered, so you may want to reload.
Yeah. Oh, see, now we know a little bit about Diana. There you go. Breaking down geographical barriers, unexpected benefit. A nice thing too is that if you see somebody that you want to connect with, if I want to connect with Adam, I can click on his picture and I can have a chat just with him too. So Adam and I can have a quick conversation if we want. Any other question? Yeah, Yolanda?
I have a question. I'm curious about how your retreat center collaboration.org ties in to the Mighty Networks in regards to, like how you said, I just added it to the blog, right? How would you go about possibly using that in connection with the Mighty Networks?
Yes. So I wish that was more fluid than it is. And I think there's a possibility that it could be more fluid later. But for right now, the way that our website is set up, it doesn't automatically post into the Mighty Networks. The two are linked just by a link in the header. So you can get to our Mighty Network from our website, and you can get to our website from our Mighty Network, but they are not the same website. So when I post to our blog, I'll just post that link, the blog post link, into Mighty Networks as well, so that we can have the conversation in either place. So it is a little more broken up than I would like. I would wish that it was just one conversation so everyone can see everyone's thoughts, but that's not what we have right now. Does that answer your question?
I think an add-on to that, Yolanda, which is a really great question, is when the website conversation was happening, we talked, and this is related to the Living Library, we talked about a intraweb where people in retreat centers or allied organizations could join and have conversations. So that's how I'm thinking about this space too, is the website's external for anyone who wants to Google it, and the Mighty Networks is more for kind of like deeper conversations about it.
Maybe we'll save a few minutes at the end of our call today for if any other questions bubble up for folks. I want to make sure that I touch on this video because I think that might bring up some more questions. I'm just putting things in front of folks and we'll see where we get. So I'm going to transition to talking about our video. I want to say it was the beginning of the summer, maybe mid-May, that the idea came up that we wanted to be able to tell the story of what was happening with retreat centers during COVID, because we were seeing that it was going to be a huge impact and that it was going to be very difficult for us as a sector. And the idea was put forward, how about we crowdsource interviews and footage from centers around the country and have someone edit that together into a video. And that seemed very pie in the sky to me, like who's gonna do that and how is that gonna happen? And it's gonna look terrible because people are gonna be holding their cameras at the wrong angle or whatever. And I was reassured that no, that's not true, that people are very gracious during this time because we're all stuck at home. And this is a great time actually to tell our story because people wanna know what's going on with retreat centers and they don't care how good the footage is. So that was really reassuring to me, and we decided to start the project. Well, here we are, 6 months later or something. And finally, we've got the video edited down to a reasonable length. We've got music under it. We've got some great perspectives expressed, and we're telling the story of what's happening with retreat centers during this time. The challenge now is how do we tell this story to the rest of the world? How do we give this video to folks so that that story makes an impact somehow, so that for those of us who run retreat centers, it impacts the folks who want to come and stay with us or come and meet us online. And for those of us at the retreat center collaboration, it impacts whether more centers want to be a part of the work that we're doing collaboratively. And maybe it can also impact funders to say, wow, this is incredible that they're collaborating in this level of detail during this difficult time. This is something we want to be behind because this is creating the spiritual foundation for a loving world, in the words of the Fetzer Institute. This is pretty important. So I want to show you the video that we made, get your take on it, and then I want to talk about how we can launch this together. I'll give you a little bit of background. Fetzer Institute is planning to launch this to their audience, their social media audience, October 20th. Fetzer's social media audience is 400,000 people. That like sends a chill up and down my spine when I say that. Who works at retreat centers that doesn't know about what we're doing, that doesn't know that retreat centers are communicating with each other and working together to solve these problems? This is pretty exciting for them. And then also, who cares about retreat, but maybe doesn't have a personal connection with a retreat center? They don't have that experience that we've had. And it kind of tickles them that, how can I be involved in this? So if Fetzer launches that to their audience, that's great. But we wanted to give the video to individual centers to launch to their audiences as well. And we're curious how to do that best, because I don't know how to do that best. And I think we all might have a lot of ideas about how to do that best. And I want to get those from you so that we can support you as best we can before that happens in just a couple short weeks. A couple short weeks, even less than that, 1 short week. So I'm going to show you the video now, and then we can talk about how we want to move forward with the idea. Hold on a second. I need to make sure that I have my player up. So I'm going to minimize this a little bit. It's a 5-minute video. Let me know if you can't hear the audio.
The Retreat Center Collaboration, or RCC, is bringing together retreat centers virtually during the pandemic. It's a time of transformation for many centers who are learning to lean on each other for support.
What we're actually doing is going through a process of our own formation, as well as leaning into our own transformation. And so we've been planning and
We lost audio. Ben.
From each other, provide support in problem solving.
Did we lose audio?
Just when you muted yourself.
Okay, let me do a new share here. I'm going to share computer sound and optimize screen share for video clip.
and responding and connecting to the community.
The collaboration is doing work that is desperately needed in the retreat centers sector, bringing together leaders from centers all across North America to network, learn from each other, provide support, and problem solve together. Like retreat centers all across North America, Seasons has been closed since March of 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
When we came up with the idea of the collaboration in 2018, we envisioned the space for strengthening and connecting among our communities. Now it feels as if we created RCC for these times, for this pandemic, to support and guide our land-based organizations through a shared existential crisis.
One of the thoughts that I've been sitting with is seeing retreat centers as a place of rest in times of peace and a place of refuge in times of crisis. And so they have a role to play, but their role is only so relevant as they stay connected to the social fabric of time.
A key aspect of the work is connecting the inner life of spirit with the outer life of service and action.
Retreat centers are important, even more now with what we've gone through. A place to go, as it says, to retreat.
The need for an organization like this and others who bring people together and who look at ways to transcend difference and to form forward movement that is foundational to building the future we collectively want. We must have places and ways to explore these topics.
The connection to ecology, to land, to the elements, to the plant life, to all of it here is one of the transformational experiences people can have when they come, which I think is very similar to a lot of the centers.
We need one another to support each other as we strive to meet the challenges of our times. The challenges of environmental destruction, of racism, of poverty, of division. It's here at retreat centers that we have an opportunity to talk together and perhaps in some ways contribute to the healing of the world.
Many white-led organizations and individuals cannot turn away from injustice anymore, and retreat centers have a role in that. One, we can provide space for rest and renewal for communities who are frontline activists, and we also must look inward as white-led organizations and how we as individuals and organizations play a role in dismantling white supremacy and working towards a more just future.
We want to celebrate hope, but we know that we have streets of people protesting, because they're not free in this country that they live in. We want to enter into a space of celebration, yet we know families and people are sitting in grief. It is a time in which we're walking in this really liminal space of tension. And we're finding that we are doing that with such grace and with such openness. It's really giving us a sense of hope for our future.
As we move forward, I see a sense of hope. I see a sense of regrowth. A number of our retreats that were booked for this year have already rebooked for next year. And so I see a lot of hope and possibilities for the future.
We've been jarred out of our habitual ways of gathering, and if we don't rebuild new ways of gathering and new ways of moving forward, we lose the potential for there to be positive outcomes from this crisis.
Our missions, our work, our financial well-being are all being challenged. Some retreat centers have turned to doing retreats online. Many retreat centers are in deep discernment about their futures. Some retreat centers have already been shut permanently. That loss is with us for generations.
There's wisdom in these retreat spaces, in fostering one's inner being so that we can more deeply and fully engage the world around us. The Retreat Center Collaboration is a growing community of people, places, and ideas gathering to create the healthy spiritual and emotional foundation for a more just and loving world.
Oh, wow. Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah, other thoughts? Curious if this tells your story. Does that feel representative? Tried to keep it very broad, but also show some specifics. Cool.
Wow.
Adam, yeah?
Yeah, hey everybody. For some of you, I haven't seen you in months, so nice to see you again. I think another, that was beautiful, by the way, and another dimension of what's happened, I can kind of personally speak to, and I know there are others. The video sort of communicated the resilience and sort of continuity of the projects during this time, but there are many folks who went to retreat centers and worked at retreat centers that no longer do, because my organization went through 80% of the people lost their jobs, including me. And I think there's a lot of other retreat professionals in that space, and also exponentially more people who went to retreat centers who didn't have that experience this year, may not have it next year. So without going into a place of despair, keeping that tone of hope, which is really exactly the right tone, how can you communicate the gap that exists and the loss, which actually highlights the need, might throw into more stark relief what's really the benefit of something. You don't know what you've got till it's gone, sort of situation. And yeah, so both on the kind of operator side and on the consumer side, if you will.
Are there thoughts about how you would launch this to your communities?
Ben, I don't know if I have an answer to your question, but I just want to say to Adam, thank you for sharing that. It just gives me pause for a moment of how, since we're building in such community here, how so much transition is happening to so many different retreat centers, and how do we embrace that? How do we embrace that as a community? Because you're here, and so I'm just like, It just gave me pause. I appreciate you sharing that. As far as your question, Ben, there's so many ways to be able to share that. There's so many, to Dominican Center, for example, is going through a major transition. We don't have a physical building anymore. And so many are grieving that loss. And I can certainly share this as a sign of hope for them. They have faith in us. We want to come back. We're still here. We're still offering programs, but we have to find some place to do it from. So I think there's a lot of that we can. There's so many angles I think this could be used.
Yeah, what Adam expressed definitely is the balancing act, that producing a video where you're trying to tell the story of so many different retreat centers in different situations, some of them in dire straits and some of them doing very well. And how do you honor all sides of that coin and then make it so that it's something they feel proud to share with their own communities? That was a real challenge for me. And I'm hoping that, like Margarita is saying, that there's still many different ways for this to be a conversation starter, for this to actually bring the story forward further. Joanne?
I don't know how to say more than just the few words I'm going to say about this, but Adam, when you were talking, it reminds me of species loss, like let's say among birds. And like I'm not aware of the bird sounds that are lost on the West Coast, but those who live on the West Coast are. In the same way that I'm not aware of your retreat center that's lost, but those in that sort of ecosystem are. And as or if more and more retreat centers are lost, like what does that do to the landscape? So I don't know, there's nothing more I can say about that except that it reminds me of just other really painful things that are happening at this time. And like you said, we don't know what we've got till it's gone.
Ben, first I want to thank you for your really good work, because this was heading one direction and it headed another direction and then probably ended up at about the fifth direction, and it was really, really well done, and so thank you for all your work behind the scenes, and Justine, thank you as well. I think it's the beginning of the story that we need to tell. It's not the end of the story, it's the invitation to the story. And I wonder if there's been any thought in this launch about kind of an invitational roundtable to speak to some retreat center people and directors and what it is that we've gone through, in order to kind of put more faces. I mean, we just had a few faces, to put more faces to this collaboration, and that might be something that you take to Fetzer and see if they might be interested in.
When I was talking to Ben after speaking with Michael and Oren and others from Commonweal, which is we have been planning and are in process with working with the Land Foundation so that these lands can be protected in perpetuity for her spirit, for her essence, and for all the programs that go on here. And so for me, joining this network and following the loss and the endangered species, I wonder how many acres we represent across the nation and potentially around the world, and how this collective actually can continue to not only support us who are at the core
and all the beings who benefit from that kind of renewal, and how eventually maybe the dream is to create a land trust for retreat center landscapes that are able to create a solid base of resources so that these lands can be protected in perpetuity, so that when we, the leadership, the stewards, are gone, that is part of the living legacy. Thank you.
I really appreciate that perspective. At the same time, many retreat centers are glad to be able to find virtual ways of sharing, and I absolutely support that. This isn't an either or. I'm also very aware that land has its own invitation, and the spirituality of place is powerful, and that something is lost when places are lost. So I was thinking during the video conversation starter after the video, almost everybody spoke from a beautiful setting. And yeah, what happens when we don't have those settings or they're not accessible?
I think in response to your question, Ben, about how could this be used, a couple of things go through my mind. One would be, that it maybe could be a next phase or another video or another implication that would come from this is if this were shown to people who do come for our retreats, who are our participants, who are our guests, and if they could be invited to share their experience, their loss, their hope for the future for our retreat centers, that could be a wonderful addendum to add, especially if you were talking in terms of funding or looking at the sustainability. But the other thought I had was just, kind of personally is, I think it would be important for us to share that with those who support us. And so for those of us that are part of a religious congregation or connected to a community, I think it would be well for us to share that, because I think sometimes as we've been going along, people just expect that we're going to be okay and that we will be sustainable. I mean, we're just going to make it. And I think the reality of the threat that exists and the effort that is being made to recreate, regenerate is a very important message to communicate to everybody that is associated, because I don't know that everybody thinks about that.
On a very close to my heart note, I'm at a Jesuit retreat house just outside of Detroit. And yesterday a woman came to our retreat house for a 3-day individually directed retreat. So I've been guiding her the last couple of days. She came in this morning saying, I've only been here 24 hours and I'm never going home. That what she could find here, even though she only lives a few miles away, is something that just really has begun to restore her spirit, her sense of God, her relationship with God. So on a very heartfelt note, I think to continuously gather the stories of people who can physically come to our centers because we are here. So I don't know what's going to happen after 72 hours. I do know she will have to go home, but I'm glad we're here for right now.
Hey, Ben.
Yes, Heather.
Yeah, for the effort to share the story, because I know that our, in our little, sub community of staff and board and, tie it in, we can, I can share that we're connected to other centers, but it's another thing to have some idea that we're connected to other centers and that we share purpose, and another to feel it in this film. And then it was really effective in getting the sense across of like, no, there's, while this is a unique space, it's a unique space that's connected to lots of unique spaces, and we share a really important mission and contribution to the world. So it really effectively did that. I'm so grateful. It'll be a big uplift for our team.
Wonderful.
And Ben?
Yes.
I'd like to second that. Thank you, Heather, very much. Really beautiful job and inspiring. And thank everyone for the comments this morning, speaking to the heart of these issues, and Adam, to your comments. And I want to just put something out there that's delicate and a little sensitive to bring up, but I have had for some time, while we think about which retreat centers are struggling and which ones are already gone, that we hear about and share that information with each other, I have a longing to be able to really know what's been lost and see even photographs of those places. I have thought this specifically around the fires in California. Orrin and I know well a couple of places that have been burned to the ground. So I'm not thinking of a dramatic memorial that only accelerates grief, but a way to acknowledge the grief that's out there with a kind of, what to call it, a virtual memorial altar or some way to give tribute to the places that are no longer with us, so that it can be made real for people who know this but don't really know it, including myself. I don't know it as deeply as I would like. And that would include for me an acknowledgement of the land, the acreage. That's a wonderful point that's been brought up, so that outside people also who are recognizing the work we're doing realize the importance of retreat centers as places of refuge. And again, not knowing what we've lost until we've lost it. I hope that makes sense.
It does, yes. I have been collecting the names of centers that are endangered or have already closed. Some difficult news this week from a couple centers. So please share with me if you hear of more centers that are near closing or in difficult straits.
Yes.
But I think to your point, Jennifer, the idea of the grief of it and acknowledging the grief and acknowledging it publicly or collectively, I think there's something really beautiful and important there that we haven't talked about. And so I think that's something that we should talk about more. I think that is important.
Thank you, Ben. Yeah. And I would love to see if there were a separate place on our new page, or within it, better, actual photographs of these places. Painful as that may be, it also honors. It's like a memorial obituaries of the endless COVID people who have died. The human heart connected dimension of it all is so important. Thank you.
You can certainly attach a photograph to your posts in Mighty Network. So feel free to do so. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Kitty, did you have a comment?
So maybe this is the appropriate time. We are at Stony Point Center downsizing once again as of last week, and we laid off 80% of our staff in June, and now we are going to lay off everybody else, including myself and my husband as co-directors. And the idea, we're owned by the Presbyterian Church, and their hope is that they shrink us down so that 2 of our houses will stay open and be open for groups of up to 20. In the past, we've had groups up to 200. So we're going way, way down, because those are the only houses that have private bathrooms in this COVID time. And so we are going to be doing that by in the next 6 weeks. And the hope is that they will be able to, with such smaller costs, be able to keep the center going, so that after COVID, we will be able to reemerge. So we're probably on that endangered species list. I thought the way Joanne described it was so beautiful, speaking as a bird lover about those species. This place has been around 60 years.
Yeah, it's
And
raining, but I don't see it here.
it's my hope that it will continue, but I don't know. And I love the film. And I love the part of Justine talking about the importance role that we have in dismantling white supremacy. And that is sort of connected to my hope that retreat centers are not only for retreat, but they are where alternatives to current society can be experimented with and tried out. I mean, the word community, right? Different ways of living on this planet more lately. I mean, this is where you can sort of get away and try something new. And that there's a real role for that for us. And I hope that when there's a sequel, as Jean said, this is the beginning of the story, that there'll be more stories of those kinds of experiments, of really people thinking outside the box and trying to make different connections and be strategic together. So I hope to stay connected to this group while I'm still here, so you'll still see me on calls. But I don't know whether this strategy will work. I hope it will. I hope it will.
I'm sorry, can I jump in here for a quick second? I just had this vision. I almost want to share it with everyone. I see all of these little squares on my screen, but I feel like each one of the retreat centers is like a little light, and people who know about the light will return to that light. And I think about how that light obviously gives us sight, but also gives us warmth and healing. So I think when it's just maybe one single candle, one light that's lit, it's different than when we all kind of do together, because there's more brightness to it. And I'm sorry if I'm not explaining myself correctly. This is just the vision that I'm having. I know that we've before maybe had this sense of competition, but now moving into really leaning into collaboration. I think about how nice it would be for us to maintain our individuality as retreat centers, but to be able to have this same commitment to something to have a bigger impact on the people or the different communities that we serve. So when the word strategy was brought up, I think it would be maybe worth thinking or having thoughts about what that commitment could be, where we can all participate and have that greater effect. I'm sorry, my 2 cents.
Well, thank you, Kitty, for sharing, and Yolanda for sharing that image too.
This is Joanne. Maybe I'm slow in coming to this, but I think the film, the video that you showed, that you all put so much into, and some of the word, especially like from like people, it's though we know that it's as though we know people who are terminally ill or something, who might not be around us much longer. And I don't know, I'm just suddenly kind of overwhelmed with to Margaret Wheatley, who talks about the promise of what we have and the peril of the loss. And I don't know, just this collective suddenly feels really, really significant.
Thanks, Joanne, for naming that. I felt a clear shift in our conversation too. I think Ben and I had a direct outline of website, Mighty Networks, video, very tech heavy. I think if we can just sit in this and be together, I think that's way more important than the platforms we're using, that we are in this together. So let's just sit that and name that and open that space up. So thank you all for those who have already spoken. Their vulnerabilities, it takes incredible courage and trust. And we'll just sit here and bear witness to that.
You know, I think about Adam's story and Kitty's story, and I'm thinking that you two have been such a part of this, and that we've gotten to know you. And so if we gotten to know you in such a short time, the impact that you have on those participants in your retreat centers. And I'm thinking that's where my grief is now starting to move, in the sense of all those people who've had those relationships, not only with the staff, with the stakeholders of your spaces, but with each other, you know. And so, I mean, I had a conversation with somebody yesterday and say, how can we collectively grieve Dominican Center, even though there's ideas about emerging anew in a whole new identity? How do we grieve 20 some years of, and celebrate it at the same time? So I just think about the participants right now, like, so where are they going? Where do they go?
Yeah, I think what's been really hard about this is that I feel like the door of the future has been sort of shut in my face. And 2020, when we started out in January, was all about the future, and we had incredible plans for this year, and we were going full speed ahead. And so now I get to think back on the past 12 years that we've been here, but that's not where my focus has been. It's been all about, okay, so what can we do now in these times? Not only responding to the times today, but what's going to be at the end of this COVID? How are we going to come back different so that, God forbid, we go back to whatever it was, the horrible stuff that got us here in the first place? So I think my hope for you all is that you will continue to think forward, since that's not an option for me right now, and to really somehow, you know, virtually, of course, think about how can we help think about the thinking that needs to happen, or the heart work that needs to happen to come back differently. How can we be places where people can come and think, yeah, I don't want to come back in a world so full of inequalities and so full of white supremacy and so full of environmental damage. So what can we do now to help them think that way and to help respond to that longing? Because we know we're not the only ones wanting that to be in the future. I don't know. So I'm just going to dump it all on you guys.
I am new to this group. This is my first call, but I want to pick it up at the image of the ecology that was shared before here. I had the opportunity of working in environmental planning for several years in Costa Rica, and I know firsthand that there were a species of toads that we have lost for 30 years that we didn't have the hope that they were going to come back. And the care that the ecological community, the incentive community put together in educating people, in working with farmers, in working with, you name it, many levels. 2 years ago, we were surprised that one of the species that was considered lost, extinct, reappears. So using that reality to the things that we are doing and sharing here, and I work at Pendle Hill, a center that was created 90 years ago in the middle of the Depression, the Great Depression. So one of the things when I read our history is like what these people were thinking, like creating a retreat center in the middle of a economic crisis when they didn't know how to make end meet, you know. So, and we are still here. So we have gone through so many crises and so many beauty at the same time that the only things that came to mind is like that example with the toads, that maybe, you know, the people that were able to care over generations has been the one that make possible for us to reappear. And I don't have any doubt that many of our retreat center that today, including my retreat center, that we are going through difficult time, but that the care that we are able to show by creating platform like this one, you know, is the seed of what it is possible. Is the seed of hope, is the seed of transformation with everything that we will need to work, because it's not just keeping our retreat center alive, is carry on the mission that we have been carrying in our heart, and to work with things that are not necessarily easy, and we know because our current history is not necessarily the most beautiful picture in history, but is the picture where we are called to be part of and to offer our 2 cents for providing the necessary transformation that our retreat center in some way or another are contributing to.
I love that. I love that. I think it's really nice to think about the possibility that we came together here to try to learn off of each other how to stay afloat, and it could be really leaning into doing things in collaboration that might actually be what causes or what leads us to remain here and present. I think collaborative mission is important.
And I just want to add to Kitty, even though this is the first time we meet, I want to share with everyone. I was on a 3-year pilgrimage called Walking Water on behalf of restoring relations with the water that's captured in the Eastern Sierras and has built the city of Los Angeles since the early 1900s. And on that walk, that was sometimes very arduous, we came up with a little short line. Offer what you can and ask for what you need. And so again, even though I'm a newcomer to this, I want to offer that to you, Kitty, as a new member, and I'm sure is shared by all the other beings on this Zoom call. to ask for what you need so we can offer what we can. Thank you.
Thank you, I hope. And I just want to say, Francisco, bienvenidos aquí, bienvenidos. So glad you are here with us. And the message I get from your message is that when we work, Mother Nature works with us. Mother Nature works with us. We're not alone in doing this work. And the toads come back. Oh, hallelujah.
I'm aware of something as I listened to our conversation. I read an article not too long ago about an archaeological dig, and they found a clay pot that had seeds in it from 10,000 years ago, and they planted those seeds and they germinated. And my vision of this group has expanded to kind of that image of we're like the clay pot and we're holding something that is deep and real. And whether our retreat centers are open or closed, or whether our jobs are lost or secure, all of us belong in this collaboration, holding something that is crucial to the present and to the future.
I just want to say to Kitty and to Adam, both of you, I have valued so much the vision that you have shared from the very beginning. And I hope that there are going to be ways as we move forward that will be able to be continued. Even though you're going through rough times right now, hopefully this collaboration can still welcome and you can be a part and will continue to share with us, because your vision is so very, very important and so valuable, at least from my perspective. So thank you.
Over the years, I have given many retreats and workshops for organizational transitions and personal transitions, and I'm still getting help from hospice because of the loss of my husband, but my counselor sent me an article from the New York Times about a book that's just been written, and instead of referring to transitions in the way I've been used to, which I think all of us are talking about, that we're all in acute life transitions of various kinds for our organizations, he uses the words a life quake. And those of you from California know very much what that's like. In my times out there, it seemed like every time I went for something, there was a small earthquake while I was out there. But somehow that image of the life quake we're in and how to find protection. And my spiritual director said, Maureen, why don't you find a doorway to stand in? Because that's where you're supposed to be. So now I take myself and my husband and my image of God to my doorway right now to try to help myself. And he has written a book using that whole metaphor of life quakes. And instead of the words endings, he says prolonged goodbyes. And then instead of neutral zone, which I was used to from my work with William Bridges, he uses instead messy middles. And that we're always in all those different parts in different parts of our lives and in our organizations.
Thanks, Maureen, for sharing that. And I love the messy middle. And I feel like we're in the middle of the messy middle together. And I really don't want to be me or Ben right now as we close out this space, this beautiful space we didn't plan for and yet so thoroughly needed. It was so clear we needed this. And so as we close, and maybe Ben has more words to say, but I invite you to use the chat to say what else you would like to see in community calls or Mighty Network. And maybe it's more of this. Maybe it's more organic connections, heart-centered conversations that we had earlier in the summer. It was clear it's long overdue. Maybe it's more conversations about Jedi or another tutorial on Mighty Networks. I'd just like you to populate the chat as we kind of send you off into the rest of your workday. And Ben and I will take this and put it in our notes so you can all witness that and share it out on Mighty Networks and our website. Ben, do you have anything to add?
I do want to say how grateful I am for the trust and open, honest communication that we're cultivating in this space. It's very meaningful for me as an individual, very personally, to be a part of this. I also want to let you know that I am here to support you, and that this video that I'm going to email to you as a file, I'm happy to add in some other resources if there are resources that I can easily get to you. So if you have a request for that, be sure to contact me, and I'll see what I can pop in there to help you get this out to your audience, whatever that might be. Thank you for being here. We'll have another call the 27th, the 4th Tuesday of October. Anything else that folks want to say before we end?
Thank you, everyone on the call. From the heart, echoing your voice, Ben.
Yeah, beautiful work with the video. Beautiful.
Okay. I have to give credit to Kellen Manley at Fetzer, who did all the editing. Thank you, Kellen. He's not here today. Did an amazing job. See you later, folks. Be safe.
Goodbye, everybody. Adios.
Thank you.